I should have known something was wrong when she smiled at me like that. The same smile she wore on our wedding day, but tonight it didn't reach her eyes. If I'd been paying attention, maybe I would have noticed how her hand lingered over my glass, how she insisted on bringing me that one specific drink. But I didn't. And that mistake nearly cost me everything. The chandelier lights of the Montgomery estate glimmered overhead as I navigated through the sea of tailored suits and cocktail dresses. It was the kind of party where appearances mattered more than anything else, where family secrets were traded like currency and smiles rarely reflected what people truly felt. I loosened my tie slightly, already uncomfortable despite having been there less than an hour. "There you are," came Elizabeth's voice from behind me. My wife of 7 years glided toward me, elegant in her navy blue dress, champagne flute balanced delicately between her fingers. Her blonde hair was swept up in a sophisticated twist, not a strand out of place. Perfect, as always. "Thought you might need this," she said, handing me a tumbler of amber liquid. "Single malt, 2 ice cubes. Just how you like it." I accepted it gratefully. "Thanks. I've been cornered by Richard for the last 20 minutes talking about his new yacht." Elizabeth laughed, the sound practiced and melodic. "Per baby. Drink up. It'll help you survive the next few hours." I took a sip, the familiar burn of whiskey coating my throat. "You seem to be enjoying yourself." "Just playing the part," she replied, her eyes scanning the room. "They're all vultures, but important vultures. You know that." I did know. This wasn't just any social gathering, it was practically a business meeting disguised as a party. My father-in-law, Charles Montgomery, had invited all the major players who might influence the board's decision about his successor as CEO of Montgomery Industries. As his son-in-law and current CFO, I was the obvious choice. At least, that's what Elizabeth had always assured me. "Your father's been in his study with the board members for almost an hour," I noted, taking another drink. Elizabeth's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "He'll make an announcement before the night's over. Don't worry." I finished my drink faster than I should have, the stress of the evening weighing on me. The room suddenly felt warmer, the conversations around me growing slightly fuzzy at the edges. Something wasn't right. I'd only had one drink before this, and I wasn't a lightweight. "I think I need some air," I muttered, setting the empty glass down on a passing server's tray. Elizabeth placed her hand on my arm. "Are you all right, James? You look a bit flushed." "I'm fine," I said, though the floor seemed to tilt slightly. "Just warm in here. Why don't you step into the garden? I'll come find you when Dad's ready to make his announcement." I nodded and made my way through the French doors onto the terrace. The cool night air hit my face, but instead of clearing my head, the world began to swim before me. I gripped the stone balustrade, trying to steady myself. What was happening? 1.5 drinks shouldn't affect me like this. The realization hit me slowly, then all at once, the way Elizabeth had insisted on bringing me that specific drink, how she'd watched me consume it, her unusual attentiveness. My own wife had drugged me. But why? I fumbled for my phone, but my coordination was shot. I needed help. Through increasingly blurred vision, I spotted my best friend and college roommate, Marcus, chatting with someone near the garden. "Marcus," I called out, my voice sounding distant and slurred even to my own ears. "I need help." He turned, confusion crossing his face before alarm took over. "James? What's wrong, man?" Before I could answer, my knees buckled. The last thing I remembered was the feel of the cold stone against my cheek and Marcus's voice calling my name. I woke to the sterile smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of a heart monitor. My mouth felt like it was stuffed with cotton, and my head pounded mercilessly. When I managed to open my eyes, Marcus was sitting in a chair beside the hospital bed, his expression grim. "Welcome back," he said quietly. "How do you feel?" "Like death," I croaked. "What happened?" Marcus leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You were drugged, James. The hospital found a substantial amount of benzodiazepines in your system, mixed with alcohol. It could have been much worse." The memory of Elizabeth handing me the drink flooded back. It was Elizabeth. She drugged me. To his credit, Marcus didn't immediately dismiss my accusation. "That's a serious claim. Are you sure?" She handed me the drink, insisted on it. My thoughts were still fragmented, but I was certain of this. "But I don't understand why." Marcus's expression darkened. "There's something you need to know. After you collapsed, Charles made his announcement. He's naming Elizabeth as his successor, not you." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "There's more," Marcus continued, his voice tight. "They're claiming you've been embezzling from the company. Charles said they have proof, transfers to offshore accounts, falsified records. They're portraying your collapse as guilt or an attempted suicide. I tried to sit up, ignoring the wave of dizziness that followed. That's insane. I haven't taken anything. I know that, Marcus said, placing a restraining hand on my shoulder. But they built a convincing case. Elizabeth's already given interviews expressing her heartbreak over your betrayal. She's playing the devastated wife perfectly. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Elizabeth had drugged me to make it look like I'd tried to kill myself out of guilt. She'd known about her father's decision and had set me up to take a fall. The devoted wife, the supportive partner, it had all been an act. How long have I been here? I asked. Almost 12 hours. It's morning now. Marcus checked his watch. The police want to question you once you're cleared medically. Police. Panic surged through me. Marcus, I'm being framed. I need to get out of here. Find proof. I know, and I believe you, he interrupted. That's why I brought this. He pulled out a small thumb drive from his pocket. I work in IT security, remember? I've been suspicious of some of the network activity at Montgomery Industries for weeks. I've been quietly monitoring things. Hope flickered dimly. You have something? Maybe. There have been unusual access patterns to the financial systems, someone using VPNs, working at odd hours. I tracked it to Elizabeth's home office IP address. I felt a hollow laugh escape me. She's been setting this up from our own house. Marcus nodded grimly. The timestamps go back months. She's been patient, methodical. A nurse entered the room, interrupting our conversation. Good to see you awake, Mr. Hayes. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, I admitted. She checked my vitals and made notes on her tablet. That's to be expected. The doctor will be in shortly. There are also 2 detectives waiting to speak with you once you're up to it. After she left, Marcus leaned in close. Listen, James. The police are going to ask about your movements, your access to company accounts. Answer honestly, but don't volunteer information about what we suspect. I need time to analyze this data, build our case. What about Elizabeth? She tried to kill me, Marcus. His expression was grave. We have to be smart about this. She's got the Montgomery name and resources behind her. If we accuse her directly without proof, she'll bury you. He was right, of course. In the world of the Montgomerys, perception was reality. And right now, the perception was that I was a thief who couldn't face the consequences of his actions. The doctor arrived, followed shortly by 2 detectives who introduced themselves as Blake and Rodriguez. They waited while the doctor examined me, declaring me stable but in need of continued observation. Mr. Hayes, Detective Blake began once the doctor left. We have some questions about financial irregularities at Montgomery Industries. I met his gaze steadily. I haven't embezzled anything. I'm being framed. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. And your collapse at the party? My drink was drugged, I stated firmly. I'm sure the toxicology report confirms that. It does show benzodiazepines, Blake acknowledged. But that's consistent with someone who might take pills with alcohol, possibly with suicidal intent. Marcus intervened. My friend doesn't use prescription drugs, and he has no history of mental health issues or suicidal ideation. Someone deliberately drugged him. The detectives exchanged glances. And who would that be? Rodriguez asked. I hesitated, aware of how it would sound. I believe it was my wife. Blake's expression turned skeptical. Elizabeth Montgomery Hayes? The woman who's been at your bedside repeatedly until we asked to interview you alone? The one who's visibly distraught over your situation? It's complicated, I said, realizing how weak that sounded. Mr. Hayes, Rodriguez said, her tone softening slightly. We've spoken with Mrs. Hayes and your father-in-law. They've provided substantial documentation showing fund transfers that originated from your login credentials. The evidence is compelling. Those credentials were stolen or forged, I insisted. I would never. A commotion outside the room interrupted me. Elizabeth's voice carried through the door. I need to see my husband. Please, he must be so confused and scared. The door opened, and Elizabeth entered, her eyes red-rimmed and her face a perfect mask of concern. She'd changed into a modest, dark sweater and slacks, the grieving wife costume fully in place. James, she breathed, rushing to my side and taking my hand before I could pull away. Thank God you're awake. I've been so worried. I stared at her, searching for any hint of the calculating woman who had handed me that drugged drink, but all I saw was the concerned facade she'd perfected for our audience. Mrs. Hayes, Detective Blake said, we're in the middle of questioning your husband. Of course, Elizabeth said, her voice trembling just the right amount. I just needed to see him. James, whatever's happened, whatever you've done, we can work through this. I still love you. The performance was flawless. I would have believed it myself if I hadn't known better. I pulled my hand from hers, unable to maintain the charade. I think you should go. Hurt flashed across her features, so convincing that for a split second, I questioned my own certainty. James, please. Don't shut me out. Marcus stood. Elizabeth, James needs rest. The detectives have more questions, and then he needs to recover. She turned to him, a flash of something cold crossing her expression before it disappeared behind the mask of concern. Of course, Marcus. You've always been such a good friend to him. To both of us. She squeezed my hand once more before releasing it. I'll be right outside if you need me, darling. After she left, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. I could read the skepticism on the detectives' faces. In their eyes, I just rebuffed my devoted, heartbroken wife. Mr. Hayes, Detective Blake said finally, given the evidence we've seen and your current medical condition, we're not placing you under arrest at this time. However, you are a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. Don't leave town. They departed, leaving Marcus and me alone. She's good, Marcus muttered, staring at the closed door. Really good. She's had years to practice, I replied bitterly. Our entire marriage has apparently been one long con. Not your entire marriage, Marcus corrected. The access patterns I tracked only started about 18 months ago. Something changed. I thought back, trying to pinpoint any shift in Elizabeth's behavior. That's around when Charles had his heart attack. When succession planning became a real conversation. That tracks. But we need more than theories. Marcus tapped the thumb drive. I need to dig deeper into this data. And you need something from your house, any evidence that might help us. I can't go back there, I said. Elizabeth will be watching my every move. No, but I can visit, as the concerned friend checking on Elizabeth and picking up some things for you. Marcus's expression was determined. Is there anything specific I should look for? I thought about it. Her laptop. She has a personal one she keeps in her home office. If she was doing this from our house, that's where the evidence would be. Marcus nodded. I'll try. In the meantime, once you're discharged, you should stay at my place. You need somewhere safe. The next few hours passed in a haze of medical checks and painkillers for my pounding headache. Elizabeth made several more appearances, each perfectly calibrated for whatever audience was present. When we were momentarily alone, I confronted her. Why, Elizabeth? Was it always about the company? She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. You wouldn't understand, James. You weren't born into this. The Montgomery name, the legacy, it was always mine, not yours. So you framed me for embezzlement and tried to kill me? Her laugh was soft, condescending. Kill you? Don't be dramatic. It was just enough to make you look unstable, guilty. If I'd wanted you dead, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The casual cruelty in her voice stunned me. I loved you. Something flickered in her eyes, regret, perhaps, or just annoyance at an inconvenient emotion. I know. That made it easier. She stood to leave. A word of advice, James. Take whatever deal the prosecutors offer. Fighting will only make things worse for you. She left me there, hollowed out by the realization that 7 years of my life had been invested in someone who could discard me so easily. By late afternoon, I was discharged with instructions to rest and avoid alcohol. Marcus was waiting to drive me to his apartment. On the way, he updated me on his progress. I visited your house, he said, eyes on the road. Elizabeth was surprisingly welcoming, playing the role of the supportive wife concerned about your mental health. I managed to get into her office while she was making tea, but her laptop was gone. My hope's sake. She moved it. She knows we're on to her. Maybe, but I did find something else. He handed me a small black notebook. It was hidden in a false bottom drawer of her desk. I almost missed it. I flipped through the pages, finding columns of numbers, dates, and cryptic notations. What is this? I think it's her planning notebook. Some of those account numbers match the offshore accounts where the embezzled funds were sent. And look at this. He pointed to a page with my name at the top, followed by a list of dates and times. I think those are instances when she accessed systems using your credentials. Hope stirred within me. This proves she was tracking her activities. It's circumstantial, but it's a start. Combined with the data I've been collecting, we might have enough to make the police listen. Marcus pulled into the parking garage of his building. But we need to work fast. The narrative she's crafting is gaining traction. Charles has already issued a statement expressing his deep disappointment in you and his full confidence in Elizabeth as his successor. Marcus's apartment was a welcome sanctuary, a modern one-bedroom with enough technology to make it look like a small command center. He cleared space on his dining table, setting up 2 laptops. I've been analyzing the data, he explained, pulling up charts and logs. The pattern is clear. Someone using your credentials accessed the financial systems primarily between 2 and 4 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, times when server maintenance was scheduled and fewer security flags would be raised. I'm never awake at those hours, I said. And Tuesday is my racquetball night. I'm always exhausted afterward and in bed by 10. Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. Marcus switched screens to show email logs. On each of those nights, Elizabeth sent emails from your account to the financial team making legitimate requests, budget reports, forecast adjustments. Nothing suspicious. She had my passwords? The invasion of privacy stung, even amid the larger betrayal. More likely she installed keyloggers on your devices. Or simply watched you enter them. People get careless at home. He pulled up another screen. But here's our smoking gun. The VPN connections originating from your home IP address during those exact time windows. And he tapped a few keys, cross-referencing with your phone's location data that Google helpfully stores. You were definitely in bed asleep when these connections were active. Relief washed over me. So we can prove it wasn't me. It's compelling evidence, Marcus agreed. But we need more. The transfers themselves were sophisticated, routed through multiple shells, with paperwork that appears legitimate. Elizabeth had help. Thomas Reynolds, I said suddenly. Her father's personal attorney. He's always been oddly protective of her, even for family counsel. If anyone helped her set this up, it would be him. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. That fits. The legal documentation is too perfect, too bulletproof for someone without legal expertise. He made a note. I can look into his digital footprint, see if there's any connection. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. I underestimated your friend Marcus. Smart move staying with him. But remember, I've been planning this for longer than you realize. Back off, or I release the evidence I've been saving. You don't want that. I showed Marcus the message. His expression hardened. She's bluffing. If she had anything more damaging, she would have used it already. Maybe. I wasn't so sure. But she's always been methodical, always had contingency plans. Then we need to be one step ahead of her. Marcus returned to his computer. I've been working on something. The embezzled funds were moved through a series of shell companies before landing in accounts in the Cayman Islands. But there's a pattern to the transfers. They all briefly passed through a holding company called Artemis Ventures. The name struck a chord. Artemis, that's the Greek goddess of the hunt. And Elizabeth's middle name. Exactly. Hiding in plain sight, but just obscure enough to miss unless you were looking for it. Marcus pulled up corporate registration documents. And guess who's listed as the beneficial owner of Artemis Ventures? Thomas Reynolds, as trustee for an unnamed client. That's our connection, I said, excitement building. But is it enough? Not quite. We need to establish that Elizabeth is the actual beneficiary. Marcus frowned at his screen. And we need to prove she drugged you at the party. Without that, this could still be painted as you trying to deflect blame for your own actions. I tried to think back to the party. There were security cameras at the Montgomery estate. If we could get footage of Elizabeth handling my drink. Already thought of that, Marcus replied. I contacted an old college friend who works for the security company they use. He's trying to get us access to the footage discreetly. My phone buzzed again, another text from Elizabeth. The police have more evidence than you know. Offshore accounts in your name. Emails you don't remember sending. Even search history showing research on how to embezzle funds. The frame is complete. Take the deal they'll offer tomorrow. She's getting nervous, Marcus observed after reading the message. Pushing too hard. Tomorrow. I checked the time, nearly 10 p.m. We don't have much time. Marcus straightened suddenly. Wait. She mentioned search history. Your devices were seized by the police when the investigation began, right? I nodded. My work computer and phone? Yes. But not your personal laptop? The one at home? No, I don't think so. I rarely use it for work. Marcus grinned. That's her opening. If Elizabeth planted evidence by manipulating your search history, she might have done it on all your devices, including your personal laptop, which the police don't have yet. And if we can get to it before she does. I began. We might find evidence of tampering, Marcus finished. But we need to move fast. Once she realizes that device is still out there, she'll make sure it disappears. It was nearly midnight by the time we had a plan. Marcus would create a diversion at my house the next morning, supposedly coming to collect more of my personal items. while I snuck in through the back entrance using my key. It was risky, but we were running out of options. Sleep was impossible. I lay awake on Marcus's couch, replaying 7 years of marriage in my mind, searching for signs I should have seen. Had Elizabeth ever loved me, or had I always been a pawn in her family's power games? The thought brought a deeper pain than even her betrayal. Morning came too quickly. My phone buzzed with a call from Detective Blake, asking me to come to the station at noon for additional questioning. They had new evidence to discuss. The clock was ticking. Marcus and I drove separately to my neighborhood. He would approach the front door while I waited for his signal that Elizabeth was distracted. As I sat in my car a block away, doubt crept in. What if she wasn't home? What if she had already found and destroyed my laptop? My phone buzzed with Marcus's text. She's here. Wearing workout clothes, looking stressed. Letting me in to get your things. Go now. I moved quickly, cutting through the neighbor's yard to reach the back of my house. My key still worked in the back door. Elizabeth hadn't changed the locks yet. I slipped inside silently, listening for voices. I could hear Marcus in the living room, purposefully engaging Elizabeth in a lengthy conversation about my mental state and the company's response. I crept up the stairs to our bedroom, where I kept my personal laptop in the nightstand drawer. Relief washed over me when I saw it was still there. I grabbed it and was turning to leave when I spotted something else, Elizabeth's phone, charging on her bedside table. She must have been using her secondary phone to text me the threats. Impulsively, I grabbed it too. Her personal phone might contain even more evidence than the laptop. As I headed back toward the stairs, I heard Elizabeth's voice growing closer. I just need to grab something from upstairs, Marcus. Make yourself comfortable. I ducked into the guest bathroom, heart pounding as her footsteps ascended the stairs. She passed by, entered our bedroom, and after a moment, I heard her frustrated exclamation. She knew something was wrong. I didn't wait. I slipped out of the bathroom and down the stairs as quietly as possible, praying that Marcus would keep her distracted enough not to immediately check the back door. I made it to my car and texted Marcus, "Got it. Get out when you can." 10 minutes later, Marcus joined me at our predetermined meeting spot, a coffee shop several miles away. "She knows something's up," he said grimly. "She kept getting calls she wouldn't answer in front of me, and she was checking the windows like she expected to see someone. When I left, she was on the phone with someone, sounding angry. We need to work fast." I opened the laptop, relieved when it powered on. "And I got a bonus, her personal phone." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "That's a bold move, and potentially problematic legally. At this point, I'm fighting for my life and reputation," I replied. "Legal niceties can wait." The laptop revealed exactly what we'd hoped, evidence of tampering. The search history contained suspicious queries about offshore banking and embezzlement techniques, all conducted at times when I had verifiable alibis elsewhere. More importantly, the system logs showed remote access software that had been installed months ago. "This proves someone else was controlling your computer," Marcus said excitedly. "And combined with the timing data I've collected, we can demonstrate you physically couldn't have been the one conducting these searches." Elizabeth's phone was locked, but Marcus had tricks for that too. "She's using her birthday as the pin," he said with disgust after his third attempt worked. Amateur move for someone so calculating. The phone was a treasure trove. Text messages between Elizabeth and Thomas Reynolds discussing the frame-up, emails outlining the steps of their plan, and most damning of all, notes about which drug to use at the party and how much would be needed to create the appearance of a suicide attempt without causing permanent damage. "This is it," I said, feeling vindicated and sick at the same time. "Everything we need to clear my name and implicate Elizabeth and Reynolds." Marcus was already copying the evidence to his secure server. "We need to get this to the police immediately. But not Blake and Rodriguez. They're already biased toward Elizabeth's version of events. We need someone higher up." A text alert sounded on Elizabeth's phone. I looked down to read a message from Reynolds. "Police called. Someone accessed your home while Marcus was there. If James has your phone or laptop, we're compromised. Initiating contingency plan. Meet at the office ASAP." "They're moving to damage control," I said, showing Marcus the message. "We need to move faster." Marcus made a call to a contact at the police department, a captain he knew through cybersecurity work he'd done for them. After a brief explanation, the captain agreed to meet us at the station immediately, bypassing Blake and Rodriguez. As we gathered our evidence and prepared to leave, Elizabeth's phone rang. The screen showed Dad calling. On impulse, I answered and put it on speaker. "Is it done?" Charles Montgomery's voice was cool, businesslike. "It's Elizabeth's phone, but not Elizabeth. I replied. A pause. James, this is unexpected. I bet it is, I said, anger rising. Did you know your daughter drugged me? That she's been systematically framing me for months? Another pause. You always were smart, James. Just not smart enough to realize you were a temporary placeholder. Elizabeth is a Montgomery. The company was always going to be hers. The casual cruelty, so similar to Elizabeth's, stunned me. You were part of this. Part of it? I approved it. Elizabeth needed to prove she could handle difficult situations decisively. This was her test. And she passed brilliantly. His voice hardened. But you become an unexpected complication. I suggest you take whatever deal the prosecutors offer. Fight this, and you'll find the Montgomery family isn't easily defeated. The call ended, leaving me staring at Marcus in disbelief. The whole family was in on it. I was just a pawn from the beginning. Then let's make sure they all go down, Marcus said grimly. We have what we need. At the police station, Captain Wilson listened intently as we presented our evidence. The remote access logs from my laptop, the incriminating texts and emails from Elizabeth's phone, the notebook with its detailed tracking of the embezzlement scheme, and the data Marcus had collected all painted a clear picture of elaborate frame-up. This is extensive, Wilson said finally. And disturbing. Mr. Hayes, if what you're showing me is authentic, you've been the victim of a sophisticated conspiracy. It's authentic, Marcus assured him. I can verify the digital forensics if needed. Wilson nodded. I'll need to bring in our cybercrime unit. And we'll need formal statements from both of you. He studied me carefully. You realize the people you're accusing are powerful and connected? I know, I replied. But the truth matters more than their power. What followed was hours of statements, evidence review, and legal consultation. By late afternoon, a warrant had been issued for Elizabeth's arrest on charges of drugging me with intent to cause harm, conspiracy to commit fraud, and falsifying evidence. Thomas Reynolds was also named as a co-conspirator. Charles Montgomery wasn't explicitly charged, but the investigation would extend to his involvement. The news broke as we were finishing at the station. Elizabeth, Thomas Reynolds, and Charles Montgomery had all been taken into custody. Montgomery Industries' stock plummeted as the scandal unfolded. Years of legal battles likely lay ahead, but the initial evidence was compelling enough that my reputation began to recover almost immediately. As Marcus drove me back to his apartment that evening, exhaustion finally hit me. I had lost my marriage, my career, and my trust in people all in the space of 24 hours. But I had also discovered the truth before it was too late. What now? Marcus asked as we pulled into his parking garage. I gazed out at the city lights, feeling a strange sense of liberation beneath the pain. I rebuild. Start over. Find out who I am without the Montgomery shadow hanging over me. You know you've got a friend for that journey, Marcus said simply. I know. And I did know. Through all of this, I discovered who my real allies were. I think I might travel for a bit. Get some perspective. Then maybe start my own financial consulting firm. Use what I've learned. Sounds like a plan, Marcus nodded approvingly. Just promise me one thing? What's that? Next time, I get to check your drinks for drugs before you take them from anyone. Despite everything, I laughed, a genuine laugh, the first in what felt like ages. Deal. As we rode the elevator up to his apartment, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Elizabeth's booking photo had been released. In it, her perfect facade had finally cracked, revealing the cold calculation beneath. I felt no satisfaction, only a quiet certainty that justice was being served. The truth had come at a devastating personal cost, but as I stood on the threshold of an unexpected new beginning, I realized something important. In losing everything I thought I wanted, I had found something I truly needed: clarity, purpose, and the freedom to build a life based on something real. And that, despite all the pain, felt like victory.